You gonna filter out the swears? Okay, good. Because I'm gonna swear like a friggin' trucker. Although I just said friggin'. Doesn't make any sense, Scotty. Shut the hell up, we're filming a TV show! I don't know, should I address the camera or should I just act normal? Wrapping up the week, right?
In the great hall of the Justice League, there are assembled the world's 4 greatest heroes, created from the cosmic legends of the universe. Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, Aquaman, and those 3 junior super friends, Wendy, Marvin, and Wonder Dog. Their mission, to fight injustice, to right that which is wrong, and to serve all mankind.
Well, if you haven't already guessed, this episode is going to be all about the Super Friends. The first episodes of the Super Friends came out in 1973, and I was 6 years old, and it had a profound effect on my childhood, as well as many others. And I know that if you're a child of the 70s, you absolutely remember the Super Friends. But the interesting thing about the Super Friends is that they released one season in 1973. They created one season, and they didn't create a new season till 1977. So those first episodes that they created, they replayed for 4 years. For 4 years before they created any new ones. And you didn't get to see it that often. It was only on Saturday mornings. It wasn't on during the week. There was no... These were... It was a very, intensified time of cartoons that you could only watch then. And so there was something very special about how they created them and the message that it sent, and we couldn't get enough. And the whole neighborhood was Super Friend crazy. And there were some toys out, and mostly the Mego toys that I've shown you some, which I will show you some more in this episode. Were all all the rage because of the Super Friends. And there were some great parts, and I'm going to talk a little bit about those, and I'll talk about some of the toys that connect to all those really great memories.
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice.
All right, so we're going to start with Mego Superman. So Superman obviously was in the Super Friends, and and these are originals. This is my original Mego collection, and this is a Mego Superman from the series 1. So he would have been out in the first season of the Super Friends. Of course, it went for 4 years, so it pretty much covered. But if you were interested in the Super Friends or interested in comic books, this was the figure that you would have. You would have Superman in the Mego style, and lots of people had them. They made millions of these. And then there's Wonder Woman. So this is Mego Wonder Woman. Now, if you were a little boy and you loved the Super Friends, you still wouldn't get Mego Wonder Woman. And they're just there's no way that, and she had this there's no way that you could have a girl's doll in your collection. I remember one of the girls on the street actually had this Wonder Woman, and then so we would bring our Megos and we would play Super Friends, and she had Wonder Woman. So there was something that was kind of cool, but you couldn't boys couldn't have. This would be like having dolls, and then there'd be like, what's wrong with you? So now it's all good. Batman and Robin. And again, these are original from the 1970s superheroes. They're in pretty good shape. I've got an extended collection of these guys. And then again, these were the guys for action figures that you would have in your collection. People probably called them dolls behind our backs. Oh, boys are playing with the dolls again. And then of course Aquaman, and of course Aquaman with his gloves. Now Batman has gloves too, and I forgot that I didn't put them on there, but he has gloves like this. It's such a weird thing that they did with these gloves. I don't know. It's weird. I got a big pile of them, and they just fall off, so it's kind of a pain in the back. Aquaman's kind of stay on because they think they're kind of funny on him. But one of the things with Aquaman and the superheroes, the Super Friends, was he was always, he talked to marine animals, and it was always like a stretch trying to figure out how to get Aquaman to do something cool. Well, I still loved him. I love this character. I don't know. I think it's super cool to talk to animals. And it was really cool when, like a whole bunch of whales and stuff would get in the, I don't know, it was cool. But some people thought it was lame. I didn't, but yeah. So this is Aquaman. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of like powers. Not like in the new movie where he's fighting like he's all buffed out. And so that wasn't the way Aquaman did stuff. I don't know why they're doing that now. But anyway, I digress. I'll save my Aquaman comments for another day. And there's a few more characters. Now, Green Arrow was not in the first season, but and so this was a Mego character, Green Arrow. But there was one episode where he was like a guest, and we went bananas over him showing up, like the little removal hat. But yeah, so we really loved the guests that showed up on the show, the guest superheroes, and I thought that was really cool. And then they later added them, all of them in for later seasons, which I'm going to talk about those with some of the other figures that I have. And this is just one. This is Mxyzptlk, and he's Superman's villain, and he has like unlimited ridiculous powers. And the only thing that will stop him is if you trick him into saying his name backwards, or I don't know. And so they ended up tricking him in the episode. But I mean, it's just really weird that that Mxyzptlk actually end up in the Mego collection, because it didn't have a deep collection of figures, and it was really kind of a random dude, and he's super lame. We did not have this guy as kids. We didn't have a ton of the villains. Some of the other villains that were in the line were the Penguin, the Mego Penguin, and it's the only one that had like this fat body, which was really bizarre. Part of most of these were Batman villains, but there was also a Batman TV show that was out. It was a live action TV show. So I think some of this was connecting to that. So the Riddler and the Joker, and they look very much like the characters from the TV show. But they also make appearances later in the second season from 1977 of the Super Friends. So.
Gathered together from the cosmic reaches of the universe, here in this great hall of justice, are the most powerful forces of good ever assembled. Superman, Batman and Robin, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and the Wonder Twins, Zan and Jaina, with their space monkey, Bleak. Dedicated to truth, justice, and peace for all mankind.
Okay, so this series of figures was made by the Figures Toy Company. I have quite a few of their figures. They make some really excellent Mego reproductions. I think I've shown you some. But they made this series that are specific to the Super Friends. So this is Aquaman. And they do this really cool thing where you could actually open them up, and they have this like tag, and then you can put them back in the blister pack, which I think is great. But I haven't opened them because I like to keep things in the package now, and I have a lot of loose figures, and they're awesome. So when it comes to some of these, I usually just keep them in the package and keep them in really good shape. So Aquaman, and I don't know, if you remember, but this was Samurai. So they were really trying to create this very diverse group of superheroes. Obviously, Samurai is not someone that showed up much at all in anything other than the Super Friends. So, and you'll see that they really added a lot of ethnicity to the show. It was a little later on, so I think it's season 3, and then they added El Dorado, which he was pretty cool. You could turn invisible and stuff, and again, they had all these group of heroes and their villains. And then, of course, there was Black Vulcan. Oh, still got the protective wrap on him. Look at that. Black Vulcan. You could just call him Vulcan, but that's how they rolled back then. I think they were, whatever. They did that kind of stuff in the comics too. So, Black Vulcan, of course, Robin, who was always in the Super Friends even from the very beginning. And you know what I noticed in my collection here, because I don't have them all. Of course, I have Wonder Woman, and she's, again, pretty close. But I don't have Batman. So somehow or another, I missed Batman. I think he was Series 3, and I wasn't paying attention. I think I moved, and there was a lot going on, and buying more stuff was not on my agenda list. So I missed Batman. But this is Superman, obviously, very cool. He's, very much the character from, or as close as you could get to the Super Friends series. And I don't know why, but Apache Chief, again, this was a lot of very obvious ethnicity that they were, diversity that they were putting into the Super Friends. It was still cool. We didn't feel that at all, but they were really trying to have like a lot of different characters. Put a Native American character in a Super Friends show was pretty amazing back then, if you think about it, the diversity that they tried to include. So, but the cool thing about Apache Chief is that he could get gigantic, and I don't know, I thought that was friggin' awesome. And it felt like he didn't do it enough. Like, I would just walk around gigantic all the time, because it didn't seem to have any limit, and he just had to say his name out loud, Apache Chief, and or a Nook Took or something. I don't know. Yeah, maybe he didn't have to say his name, but he had like some magic word he would say, and he would get gigantic. And I thought that was pretty cool. I felt like he could have kicked everyone's ass. Basically, it was the size of Godzilla. So these are all the characters that they actually made, and some of these are better than others. And I don't have half of these, and I just realized that when I was bringing them all together. All right, so the last one I'm going to show you is, of course, the Wonder Twins. So these guys replaced Wendy and Marvin and Wonder Dog. Good call. In the second series of the Super Friends, and while they were, at least they had superpowers, they're the most unique and crazy concoction. They didn't exist anywhere else. They were totally created for the show. And of course, Zan would turn into something ice related. They would, Wonder Twin powers activate, and then Zan would turn into something like ice, and very often it was like a bucket of ice or an ice puddle or a glass of water, and then she would turn into like a tiger or a dragon. Like, she could turn into all these cool things, and he was always an ice something. It was crazy and awesome. And then Gleek just caused trouble. He was just and occasionally he would do something useful, but mostly he was just a giant pain in the ass. He was the wild card in the mix. You never knew what Gleek was going to do, but it was never going to be good. So Yeah, this one is pretty cool to have because it was special to the TV show, and then everyone remembers the Wonder Twins, and everyone makes fun of them, and it's fun. So that's my Super Friends collection, in from Figures Toy Company. That's pretty awesome.
Banded together from remote galaxies are 13 of the most sinister villains of all time, the Legion of Doom. Dedicated to a single objective, the conquest of the universe. Only one group dares to challenge this intergalactic threat, the Super Friends. The Justice League of America versus the Legion of Doom. This is the challenge of the Super Friends.
I'm gonna introduce you to this collection. Actually, was made by Mattel in 2010, around there. There was a lot of interest in Mego style action figures for quite some time after the late 70s into the very early 80s. Mego kind of Mego went out of business, and then that all. But there was still a lot around, and then I think people really connected with Mego action figures from their childhood. So, and then these figures are made by Mattel. They're DC. And really inspired by the Super Friends to be for collectors. So each one of these figures also connected to Challenge of the Super Friends, which is where they had the Legion of Doom, and each one of the heroes had their villain. So Superman had his villain, which was Lex Luthor. And a lot of this packaging mirrors very similar to the Mego style packaging, and obviously the figures themselves. And if you take a really close look at Superman, it's a very close match to how he looks in the cartoons. So they definitely were thinking of Super Friends inspired. And the back of the package is very similar to original Mego card figures. Mego made figures on cards and on boxes. So these were inspired by the card ones. Batman and Two-Face. And they would have been. I don't know if Two-Face was in the Super Friends in the Legion of Doom. It's possible. I don't really remember, but he's a cool character, and definitely a classic Batman villain. So we have these two, and of course we have Aquaman, and then his villain, Black Manta, and in the Challenge of the Super Friends, these guys would battle it out underwater, kind of like the movies, but probably better because I don't know what's going on with the movies with these two characters, but the main power that Aquaman had was the fact that he could talk to underwater animals, and there's quite an advantage that you'd have from doing that. So you don't necessarily have to be fighting with a trident to kick ass when you're Aquaman, but whatever. My man. So stupid. I hated that. I love the actor that plays Aquaman, but I just don't think he fits, and I'll probably add some of that out. I don't know. So we've got Wonder Woman and Cheetah, and they were paired up in the Legion of Doom as well as villain and superhero. And again, they do this on the packaging. They also, the colors are matching between the two, so I find that very interesting as well. Then we've got Flash and Captain Cold. Captain Cold was not a Flash villain in the comics, but they definitely made him Flash's villain in the Super Friends. Again, Mego inspired. And then of course we've got Green Lantern and Sinestro, Green Power Ring and Yellow Power Ring. These guys were paired off as villains as well. So pretty cool. So a Green Arrow. Now, for this particular figure, he was not paired up with any villains. You can kind of tell in the back. He was like this exclusive. I don't remember. Right? He came in a different box, and I had to order him special or something. But I got him because Green Arrow's super cool. And I remember dressing up as Green Arrow in a Halloween costume or something, and made like fake beard. I thought I looked awesome. I probably looked like an idiot because I had a cardboard beard on my face, but I thought I looked great. But Shazam was not in the Super Friends. But there was a TV show after. It was a live-action TV show called Shazam, and it was really cool. And I think there was a TV show called Isis as well. But it was all live-action. It was a little campy, but we watched it. Thought it was cool. It was sort of like the new version, which I actually really love the new version of Shazam because I think it's silly and I think it's perfect for that. But yeah, so they're part of this this Mattel, retro figure series, and these guys didn't show up till later in the Super Friends season. I think it was season 5. Darkseid and Martian Manhunter. Obviously, they're pretty big in the comics. If you ever watch Justice League, these guys play pretty heavily in that. They're definitely more of a serious characters. Not so much that Super Friends was as serious. Although they got a little crazy at the end with the space stuff and trying to be like Star Wars, I guess. But yeah, these two were the last 2 series in this Mattel collection. So that was super fun for me, and I'm hoping that I have the opportunity to make some cool stuff in there. Besides, I got some clips from the old show and stuff that should make it fun. But I wanted to just say, because there are some things that have happened at Lego sort of recently that I know have been really hard. Everyone had to make their sort of final decision, whether you're going to follow your role or not, and there's been some real challenges there. And I noticed in one of the town halls that there was a lot more animosity and anger that I've seen in a while, which I think is great because that means that people are being honest, and I think that's the only way that we can ever get anyone to listen is being 100% honest. So I think it's the right thing, and I'm 100% behind it. And I think one of the things that I've always, like I said, the Super Friends sort of have connected. I've always connected to the Super Friends on is the things that they sort of say throughout those sort of meaningful sayings. Even though it was, a silly show for the most part, there was always these moments were really motivational. And like, Batman would say, "There's no such thing as the impossible." And I remember saying that to Tony when he would my brother Tony, when he would try to tell me, you can't do that, and I would say it like in the Batman tone, and so I really a lot of the things that sort of were in the show resonated pretty strongly, and even in the intro piece where they're like, their mission to fight injustice, to right that which is wrong, and to serve all mankind. It definitely was, this is good stuff. You certainly want to have your kids thinking that kind of thing, and something about that really struck a chord with me. And you can kind of see a little bit in the way that I even act as an adult. And I think one of the things that has happened in some of the situations at Lego is that, when I sort of sense this sort of injustice, that I begin to stand up and say something, and it's not something I can control. So if it annoys you, bear with me. More than likely, at some point, things will settle down and I'll go back to doing my regular job. But in the meantime, I'll see you next time.
Their mission to fight injustice, to right that which is wrong, and to serve all mankind.